My name is Richard Moyer, but I prefer Dick, so most people know me as Dick Moyer. I'm from Greenville, Pennsylvania originally, but I live in Las Vegas now. I've been out here 19 years. Greenville is a small city north of Pittsburgh, about 55, 60 miles on the Ohio-PA border. So just want to let you know where I'm from. I'm a Pennsylvania boy. I went into the service in October of 1967 and went to Fort Jackson, South Carolina. That's where I served my basic training. And then went home for Christmas. I went to Fort McClellan, Alabama for Airborne Infantry Advanced Training, which was called Tigerland then. And if you had volunteered to go to jump school, which I had in basic, you went to one of the Tigerlands, and they had them scattered throughout the United States.
Welcome to Tigerland. This will be your final week of training before you are shipped overseas. Maybe some of you have heard that we've lost this war. Well, gentlemen, it's too damn late to ask those questions. All that matters now is that you practice how to stay alive.
At that time, in '67, they were starting to really build up the Army. So, and anticipation of what Westmoreland wanted to do. Because he was under a lot of pressure from the Johnson administration to start showing improvement or more, some kind of improvement or some kind of positive move, because basically we're at kind of like a stalemate. And so Westmoreland met with some of his high-ranking officers, and that was in end of September 1967. And he decided that they were going to form two new Ranger units. And these units would be assigned to field force divisions, not to companies. So, and I was one of the companies. I ended up joining them in May of '68. I wasn't there for the original forming of the company, but I have information about the company. And so the day after the meeting, the two companies were on the book. So then they sent out word to all of the airborne units that were in Vietnam looking for volunteers to put these two units together. And the first criteria is you had to be airborne qualified, meaning you had to be a paratrooper. So that was the first criteria. And so they started receiving the volunteers in October and November, building these companies. And it was F Company, 51st Infantry Long Range Patrol, is the company that I'm talking about, because that's who I linked up with. Now, they started putting the company together, and then in November, they went to what was called an in-country school that was ran between the Triangle by the 5th Special Forces, and it was an in-country called Recondo School. And they went up there, it was a 3-week course, and they went up there, and initially they were taught commando tactics and recon tactics, and that's how they mashed it together and come up with Recondo. They were designed to do both. And our company was there for 2 weeks, and they quit training and said they had to get back to their assigned area because they needed to get teams in the field. So early December, they started pulling missions. And in the first missions, they started making significant contacts. And after the 4th or 5th mission, they actually had captured enemy prisoners, documents, stuff. And during that process, those documents showed that they were planning a major offensive. I'm not sure exactly when it was happening, but it was coming. And so they kept getting more and more prisoners, body counts, weapons, more and more documentation. And so General Whelan, who was in charge of 2nd Field Force at that time, was very acute at analyzing intelligence information, and that's what we were. We were the eyes and ears for 2nd Field Force, and we would be lent out to other companies, some of them that did have their own long-range patrol companies. Now, 2nd Field Force ended up being the largest corps in the U.S. Army ever had. And its lineage is actually directly back to the 22nd Corps in Europe. And so it was pretty, and we were actually 2nd Field Force was in command in charge of the 11 provinces surrounding Saigon. That was our area of operation, and that went all the way to the Cambodian border. And in that area included what we called the catcher's mitt, and which was, the name catcher's mitt because it contained coochie, tannin, black Vegemite, Tahobo woods, and other names. So it was a quite dramatic area to operate in. The alert, I'll explain what alert is. We called them alerts because everybody, the long range patrol, and they kind of shorten stuff down and just give us unpoetic name called alerts. So the alert consisted mainly of a 5 or 6 man team. They would be heavily camouflaged. They would be inserted stealthily into the area operations where we would, wherever Second Field Force wanted us to be when we were under the command of MACV also. That was the umbrella over all of the forces in South Vietnam. So a team consisted of 5 or 6 men, heavily camouflaged and well armed. And the reason we carried an M6, one guy carried an M6 machine gun with probably, I don't know how much he carried. When I carried an additional 800 rounds in my backpack. And your backpack could weigh anywhere from 60 to 80 pounds, and that's a conservative estimate because you had to have all of your armament, your grenades, your survival knife, and you had to take your own food and water for plan on a 6-day mission. And plus all the other armament. We would have an M79 grenade launcher with several types of rounds for it. It carried laws, which was actually an anti-tank weapon, but we used it for blowing up bunkers. There'd be det cord C4, and all of the men the other team members carried an M16, and some of them carried their own personal sidearm, that they had. So that was up. And everybody's equipment was very similar, but everybody had their own way of constructing their rucksacks. They knew where everything was and where their grenades were, and their bandoliers for their extra rounds for their M16 or M60. And when I carried M60, I had a Claymore bag that the Claymore mines were in, and all the other team members carried a Claymore mine, but I had this bag, and I carried 200 rounds in it around my neck because I wanted it readily accessible while we were moving, because I'm carrying an M60 machine gun. An M60 machine gun weighs almost 32 pounds. That's without having any rounds, you have a short series of rounds hanging on it, because as you're moving, it's designed to be fired on a bipod. But as you're moving through the jungle, as you come into contact, you have to either shoot it from the hip or you can bring it up to the shoulder. You can fire it that way. And they say, well, a little guy like you, I said, I could lean into it. And I knew how to shoot it. So I wasn't afraid of that, baby, and I was glad to have it. My team members were real happy to have it too when we got into combat. Of course, they complained because they all had to carry an extra 100 rounds for that machine gun, and their backpacks were already heavy enough to begin with. So, and our preferred method of being inserted was through the Huey helicopters. And they say, how can you be stealthily inserted with a noisy helicopter? Well, we had a procedure where we'd had 4 helicopters that were assigned to us. 3 would be inserting teams, and 1 would be the CNC, and the company commander would be in the CNC chopper, overseeing the insertion of teams, coordinating. And what they did, their helicopters would play touch and go games. So, touch and go. So the enemy knew we were there, but they didn't know who was going, who was certain. So, but when your time was there to be inserted, you knew, because first of all, the pilots would let you know, we're going in now, and you would go right down treetop level, and then boom, into the LZ, off you go, and he's up, straight up, and gone like a shot. These other helicopters are out. So the enemy, most of the time, you got let's say a secure insertion. You weren't detected, and that was the goal. but that wasn't always. Sometimes you were inserted right in a hot LV. They were, you surprised them, they surprised you. It was one of those situations that you're stepping off the chopper and you're already in a firefight.
Warranted.